No Jumper, coolest podcast in the world. And today I'm in here with China Mac, who I just met like 5 minutes ago. How you doing, man?
Yo, what's up, bro?
Nice to meet you, man.
Nice to meet you too, man.
Yeah. I'm like you're the kind of dude who has really, let's be real, made a fucking name for himself by going on DJ Vlad and just speaking your truth.
Right.
When I think of you, I think of like, man, that is the dude who has just like came out the woodwork, and I didn't know who you were until maybe a year or two ago, and then you just been hitting the world over the head with just fucking a lot of like crazy street talk on Vlad, and that's just like motivated the people and like made you've really like created an identity off largely that. Obviously you're doing your thing with your music and social media and everything, but I feel like that's definitely the entry point where I got acquainted with what you were doing.
Right, and I think that's the same for a lot of people, you know. Definitely shout out to Vlad for giving me that platform. It's dope.
The street talk though on YouTube and shit, people just go crazy. They just love to hear about what's really like going on in parts of the world that they don't have access to, that they don't understand, such as jail being like the best example of that.
Yeah, I think it's because, you know, everybody fascinated with that type of shit, and you know, nobody wants to actually do it. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants to go in there, but you know. They're fascinated with it. So when somebody comes out, even if it's like shows or movies, you know, it usually moves with like if it has something to do with prison or some shit like that, because it's some shit that you can't just go visit and go take a look at it yourself. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like if it's like, let's say everybody says, oh, Compton is this and that. You can actually go over there and just drive through it, take a look at it.
You might not want to, but it's right there.
Yeah, it's right there. You know what I'm saying? But you can't do that with prison. You can't walk in there and take a look and see. So when you're able to, you know, them shows or interviews, when you get that inside look, you know, I think a lot of people gravitate towards that shit.
And it's kind of interesting from your perspective, though, because it's like that's probably the worst thing that you've had to go through in your life. But then meanwhile, you know that the fact that you're equipped with being able to talk about that on your own, that is just like a big thing that is going to be able to, you know, that your storytelling about that time during your life is the kind of thing that there's a lot of demand for, that people really want to know what really goes on in there.
Yeah. Yeah, it is crazy because it's a part of, it's like you said, it's a part that, you know, I don't even really want to think about that shit no more. You know what I mean? But because it's such a big part of my story, you know, a lot of people be like, yo, you always talking about that shit, whatever. But it's a big part of my story. You know what I'm saying? That's like you not talking about, you know, when you were
riding bikes.
Yeah, when you were riding bikes, you know what I'm saying? Or when you, whatever, right? Like a big piece of your before you're doing what you're doing now. So it's like, you know, it's a big piece of my story. And but now I'm building a whole nother part of my story, you know what I'm saying?
Definitely. Let me ask you this though. It's like when you're going through, you've been out for what, 2 years now?
Right.
Just hit the 2-year anniversary?
Right.
And that's the longest you've been free in your adult life, I believe you're saying?
Right, that's a fact.
Wow, crazy. When you're going throughout your day-to-day life, how often does it cross your mind that was something that you dealt with for like 10 years? Like how often does it come into your thought process? Do you ever go like a full day without thinking about that period of your life?
I think about it, but I think about it in ways like, you know what I'm saying? I'd be like, yo, damn, like I'm really free. Like, you know what I mean? I still get that. Even like, you know, just being here yesterday, we was in Vegas, and I'm just like, damn, like I'm in Vegas. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I never been to Vegas before. So just looking at that shit, I'm like, damn, I only seen this shit in movies. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just like thankful that, you know, I'm out here and shit. You know what I'm saying? And yeah. So I still think about that. I still, you know, and that shit helps me keep shit in perspective. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of kids that might not have been through that shit, they don't really appreciate certain things. You know what I'm saying? But because I was in that situation, and you know, I know how to appreciate shit. So just me waking up and not seeing no bars, and you know what I mean, not hearing the fucking guards, you know, yelling some shit, you know, on the count, you know what I mean, on the child shit, you know what I mean? That That shit really, like, you know, in the morning I'd be thankful for that shit. You know what I mean?
I think part of why people are so fascinated by you and by a lot of the street stories that you got and shit is because, well, okay, to put it in perspective, like I did, one of the most viral videos I ever did was when I went to Long Beach and I did like inside the Asian gangs of Long Beach or whatever, where I went and hung out with Stupid Young and did that video. And it's like, it's kind of weird because some of Stupid Young's homies at a certain point, they were like telling me, they're like, yo, like, we Asian, but we not like nerds. We're not like regular Asian dudes. I'm like, bro, you got like a gun on you and you got tattoos on your face. I understand that you're not a fucking regular ass nerdy Asian dude who went to Harvard. Like, you don't have to remind me of that. But it's like a thing where it feels like, you know, people are kind of fascinated for some reason by the idea of Asian people getting into the street life because, like, in their fucking jumbled mind, they think that that's not the kind of thing that those people are supposed to be going and doing, right?
Yeah, but that's just like, that's stupid, you know what I'm saying? That's just like stereotypical shit, you know what I mean? Asians been in the street, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, gangs been out here, Asian gangs been out here for a long time, you know what I mean? But I think, you know, it's easier to just put all Asians or anybody, it's easier to just put everybody in one box instead of like trying to, you know, unravel shit and take a look at, okay, you know, you got these different dynamics of you know, shit that's going on. But yeah, like you know, it gets real. But that's what every race, every, like, you know, people, you know, of course you got a lot of Asians that are well off. You got a lot of Asians that, you know, go to school and, you know what I mean? I think that, like, there's a good majority of that. But then you also have a lot of Asians that come from the hood, you know what I'm saying? That come from poverty, that comes from fucking gangs and shit like that, you know? So I think I'm definitely a representation of that. And like you said, like people are just like surprised because they usually see Asians, like Asians usually don't really, they're non-confrontational, you know what I'm saying? So like they kind of just like, they don't really like to put themselves out there and get too much, you know, but so when they see somebody that's just like, that's
really
just
living on the edge.
Yeah, right.
Just out here doing their thing.
Yeah, so like when they see that, it's like, it shocks them.
Right.
You know what I mean?
What were your early days like? What was your upbringing like? I feel like a lot of people like have heard your gnarly ass stories, but that's the thing that maybe they're not as clear about is exactly what it was like for you coming up when you were real young and shit.
When I was really young, my father was in a gang. My whole family, all like my uncles and shit, they was in a gang, but we're not talking about like a street gang. You know what I'm saying? They were like, you know, in organized crime.
They're closer to the mafia, would you say?
Like that, definitely like that.
But what was their business?
Heroin.
Heroin was the primary thing.
Heroin.
And you, at what point did you figure that out, or did you just always think that like, oh, dad is, you know, hanging out with his boys, doing something sort of shady, but you didn't really know the details?
I kind of always knew it was something like I didn't always know, but my dad had a lot of power. You know what I mean?
And you could feel it.
Yeah, definitely. Because like whenever I walk somewhere, they'd be like, "Oh, that's, you know, that's his son. That's such and such son," and everywhere I went, you know, I always had like, you know, like bodyguard, like, you know, gang, like, you know, his underlings. Like,
he would have people go around with you even when you were doing normal shit.
Because at that time, Chinatown was real territorial. So it was like one block is right here, but the next block, the connecting block, is like, you know, a different gang. So like, I used to always have people following me around, taking me to places, and that was a big thing. And then I used to always be in like the gambling houses because that was big. And, you know, just being around that atmosphere, I kind of sensed that it was a little different, you know what I mean?
But did you sense that like the bodyguards were there because you were in danger, and did that freak you out as a kid to think that like, oh, people might want to hurt me just because of who my family is?
They always told me I couldn't walk because, all right, so like the block that my pops and them was on, it was like the next block, like right, the connecting block, there was like a arcade, right? It was called Chinatown Fair, but that block was ran by the rival gang, and I could never go there, right? And I always be like, "Yo, I want to go. Like, I want to go play video games. Like, the fuck?" And they wouldn't allow me to go because it was like the rival gangs, and you know what I'm saying. So I always knew there was some type of there was limits, and there was like, there was limits of what I could do, and I always thought that was kind of weird. You know what I mean? But then I started realizing what was going on and shit, and I seen violence happen very early.
Really?
Like, you know what I'm saying? I seen body drop, like, when I was, like, relatively really young.
Really?
You know what I mean? It was right there. Like, so.
It's kind of crazy because, like, from my perspective, Chinatown, downtown, because I lived in Brooklyn and Queens from, like, 2004 to 2010. So we would always be around that area because there's like a lot of BMX spots and stuff, a lot of skate parks and stuff that are kind of in that area, and you would always be over there just to get food or whatever. And you could always tell that there's like interesting shit going on there, but as a person who's basically just like a tourist to that environment, you realize that you have no real way of understanding what's going on there in terms of street shit or what the gangs are. Like I could live in a neighborhood and understand that, like, oh, there's like Crips on that block, but in terms of like the Asian gangs and shit, that shit is so like invisible to the eye of like a fucking regular ass white person like me,
Yeah, I mean, it was different. Like Chinatown from 2004 compared to like Chinatown in like 85.
Oh yeah, because you were way
different,
before that.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it was a lot different. So what happened was, you had a lot of gangs in Chinatown, but then it wasn't the population wasn't like, say, Bloods and Crips and all this other gangs that had more members. In Chinatown, it was just like, it wasn't a lot of members. So when the feds came, for a long time, the feds couldn't crack down on the Chinese because the Chinese was insular. The Chinese didn't talk to the police. Even if they were getting extorted, getting robbed, they would never talk to the police because it was just a part of the culture that it doesn't matter. You don't talk to the outsiders, right? And the police was looked at like outsiders. But then after a while, the police started infiltrating, right? And,
it's only a matter of time.
You had like Chinese officers going in and boom, boom. So after a while, that motto, you know what I'm saying, that way of thinking and shit, that shit went out the way.
Because they just get better and better rats. They get people who are closer to the shit.
So for a long time, they couldn't infiltrate, you know what I'm saying? And then when they infiltrated, it was just like right after they came and wiped out the mafia, they went right next door, right next, like, across the street.
Right.
And shut down all the Chinese gangs and shit. And then, the Chinese gangs just didn't recover after that. You know what I'm saying? Like once they started taking everybody, like the Chinese was just like, all right, it's not gonna work anymore. So it just dissolved.
In terms of like heroin being sold in the community though, were they like primarily selling to other Chinese people, or were they just like keeping like the nearby hoods fed with drugs and shit like that? Like what was the attitude on selling drugs to your own people?
Yeah, they didn't sell it to the nearby. They didn't sell it to the people.
Right.
It was always like, like, cause Lower East Side was right there. So I don't know, like back in the days, Lower East Side,
it was madness.
It was
when
like,
you were coming up.
Like I went to Philly, right, recently, and when I went to Philly, I said, what the fuck? Like, yo, it was zombie land, you know what I'm saying? But now, you see people shooting up in the middle of the street, like nothing, broad day, like it was just nothing. That's how it was in Lower East Side back in the day. Like it was just everybody was on heroin, and because the Lower East Side is Chinatown is in Lower East Side, but like the projects and all the like outside where all the Spanish people and all the other people were at. It was people were just like the Chinese were just giving them the drugs,
right?
And that's why it was just so fucking. It was so fucked up out there, you know what I'm saying? But the Chinese, I never really seen a Chinese junkie, you know what I'm saying? Like the Chinese people wasn't really doing it. It was everybody else that had that issue.
Because when I think of like the Chinese like mind state is very much about the collective, and it's kind of hard for me to imagine like the people who are like established elders in that community being willing to see like people in their community dying off heroin and shit. It feels like that is the kind of thing that would be really looked down upon in the community.
Right. Yeah. No, definitely. I think that for the most part, like I said it somewhere else. It was like basically like the Chinese, like they understood that, and just like the mafia understood, like, you know what I mean, no drugs. For a long time, the mafia didn't get into the drugs because they felt like, you know, as soon as you do the drugs, that's when the heat comes. You can do, you know, gambling houses, you can do like all this other shit, and the feds won't really come fuck with it.
Right.
But once you're doing drugs and once you're doing heroin, that brings a whole different type of heat.
Yeah.
And that's why the mafia was always like, yo, nah, you know, you can't do drugs. You know what I'm saying? You can't, nobody can sell drugs. But people were doing it on a low. Like,
so ultimately, it's like, how are you going to let other people go out and get money if you can't get it? But I agree that, like, because drugs are also the most fucked up thing to get into, is because then your clientele are guaranteed psycho, running around the streets, getting into trouble. They have absolutely no reason not to rat on you. It's like you're just creating a huge, like, all your customers are just people who could eventually go tell on you.
Right.
Not to mention the chain of supply of people you're going to have who could, like, actually sell the shit for you and everything like that.
Right.
Yeah, because, you know, there's a dynamic around here that I've read quite a bit about where, like, it's the Korean fucking pool halls and shit. They just, like, were kind of left alone for a long time by the cops and everything because they have their own world where they're selling fucking women, they're smoking indoors, they're, like, you know, probably selling drugs, doing whatever, but it's like the cops kind of tended to leave them alone because the Korean world is so insular and they're so in their own fucking universe, and like the cops don't have to deal with it a lot. But then over the past few years, they've really like actually cracked down and made it so that all these people are scared as fuck to run these like fucking little parlors that they run where they do prostitution out of and shit like that.
Yeah.
So you've kind of seen that take place on the Lower East Side. How do you feel when you go there these days?
It's a better place. You know what I mean? I mean, of course, like a piece of me is like, damn, like, you know, it's gentrified. You know what I mean? You
Cops everywhere.
Cops everywhere. But yo, not for nothing, where we at, we're like, are you familiar with Lower East Side?
Yeah.
So there's a precinct right there, right? And then not just a precinct, but one police plaza is
Right
like
there.
a block right there.
Which is like,
and then you got
right next to
which
World
is
Trade
right
Center.
there.
Yeah.
And then the World Trade Center is there. And then you got the fucking courthouse. You know what I mean? And
Do you know where the Brooklyn banks are?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's where I spent a huge percentage of my life.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I definitely got my dick sucked down there on a park bench. Quite a few times. I seen people, like friends of mine, fucking bitches on the Brooklyn banks, middle of the night. That's disgusting. Any girl who lets you do that is a fucking horrendous human being.
Hey, you know, bitches, dirty bitches gotta live too. You know?
They gotta live too. They don't know what the fuck is going on.
Yeah, but yeah, so it was like police was right there too, and then shit was still happening, but with the drugs and the bodies and all of that shit, that's when the feds came and really swooped in, and yeah, cleaned that shit right up. And then now when I go there, it's good to see, you know, but of course a piece of me is like, damn, like I miss how it used to be, you know what I'm saying? But I also, that's just me, like the nostalgic, you know what I'm saying? Like just me missing what it used to be. But if I look at it like as a like just regular, like, you know.
Where you would want your kids to grow up?
It's fine now, you know what I'm saying? It's a great place.
Definitely. When I think about you having that influence from your dad to sort of get into that world, I think about there's this sort of viral Lil Bibby tweet last week where he said, if you're a street dude and your son is a street dude, then you're a failure. How do you feel about that?
If you're a street dude and your son is a street dude, then you're a failure. Yeah. I think if you're anybody, like, and your son is a street dude, and for the most part, you're a failure. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to be a street dude. So I think that's anybody, right? Like, who the fuck wants their fucking kid to be like in the street going to jail and shooting dope and doing whatever the fuck they doing out there? You know what I'm saying? So I think, yeah.
Did your dad work to keep you out of that environment, or what was his attitude on that?
Nah, he wasn't even around. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah, he wasn't even around.
So he was like doing work in the streets and you knew about him, but he wasn't really around to the extent that he could control what you were doing?
Right. He was around, but he wasn't, like, I would see him once in a while. But then when I was 5, he got snatched by the feds, and I ain't see him after that.
Wow, at all? You haven't seen him since? Or?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
I mean, I seen him once, you know what I'm saying? But for the most part, I ain't seen him.
So he got like a crazy long bid?
Yeah, he didn't get, I don't know how much time he got, but he basically you know, he basically told on his crew, you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And that happened. And then, you know, that shit put my family in danger, you know what I'm saying? So like for a long time, even still to this day, I don't even want nothing to do with him, you know what I mean?
Right. Damn. So that happened. So did that change where like prior to that you had like bodyguards around your family and shit like that, and then all of a sudden that stuff went away?
Yeah, it was just, it used to be like it was it was once like, damn, that's his son, and everybody like looked at us with, you know,
Yeah.
with like some type of royalty, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But then after that shit, it was like cold stares, and it was like, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't the same anymore. The energy was different. You feel me? And I felt that. And then, you know what I'm saying? Like that shit was pretty like harsh to me. You know what I mean? And it really made me like have a lot of fucking, you know.
Understanding of both sides of the world, like you know what it's like to be considered royalty and to know what it feels like to be looked down upon. And meanwhile, none of it was your choice. None of it had anything to do with anything that you done.
Right. Yeah. And then so yeah, that shit really like, you know, that shit put like I didn't even want to talk about him. Like anybody that ever after that, everybody that used to say that I was his son, I was just like, I fuck around and smack somebody for saying that shit. I just didn't want me being associated to him, you know what I'm saying, at all.
So do you think that you had like anger in your heart associated with that whole experience, and that's what sort of led you to then want to go above and beyond and do stuff that, you know, to be in the streets?
Yeah, I mean, the smarter thing, the better, like if I was a fucking smart kid, I'd been like, all right, that's not what the fuck I want to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, let me just not do the street shit and let me do, you know, but in my mind, I was just like, all right, I'm going to do the street shit, but I'm just not going to be in that gang. I'm going to just do a whole nother gang. And then I'm going to just like, you know, do it differently. Like, I'm not going to do what he did. And I'm going to fucking like, you know, I'm gonna rep hard. Like I'm gonna whatever needs to be, whatever's on the table, I'm taking that. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like meaning like if something had to be done, I'm taking that. Nobody even gotta ask me, I'm gonna do it. You know what I'm saying? That's with shooting somebody, stabbing somebody, whatever the fuck, robbing somebody, whatever the fuck it was, holding guns, whatever the fuck it was. I'm trying to prove that I'm not him. You know what I'm saying? So I was just, you know, and that's how I built my little, you know, my little name out there. And I was just on my other shit, just trying to prove to everybody that I wasn't him.